Let's jump right in and unpack a critical cloud architecture decision that, honestly, is going to impact your enterprise for years. Recently, there was this fascinating discussion over on the AWS architecture blog by cloud experts John White and Michael Wilson. They've been collaborating with advisors to tackle a massive hurdle businesses face during their cloud adoption journey. It all centers around one core architectural dilemma, one that can either totally streamline your operations or, unfortunately, create just a massive amount of overhead.
And that dilemma is whether to maintain a single AWS organization or implement multiple organizations. Now, this isn't just some academic debate, right? It strikes right at the heart of how businesses balance efficiency against risk. It's a real-world puzzle. How do you balance governance, security, cost efficiency, and operational flexibility? Because as your enterprise grows, whether that's organically, through some internal reorg, or by scooping up other companies, nailing down the correct organizational structure in the cloud becomes absolutely vital.
So for this explainer, we're going to break this down logically. We'll cover the multi-account foundation, the power of a single organization, when you actually need to split up, the trade-offs between efficiency and risk isolation, and finally, the final verdict. Starting off with Section 1, the multi-account foundation, where we establish the baseline with AWS organizations. Managing your cloud accounts under this centralized framework really boils down to 4 simple steps. First, you add accounts. You're either creating brand new ones or inviting your existing ones over. Next, you group those accounts into organizational units, or OUs, grouping them by their specific use case or work stream. Step 3 is where the real governance kicks in. You apply your policies, specifically your service control policies, or SCPs, to draw those firm permission boundaries. And finally, you enable AWS services that hook directly into this structure. Most AWS customers actually just adopt a single organization to do all of this, spinning up their multiple accounts right inside of it. Which brings us to Section 2, the power of one, and exactly why a single organization is the default choice. The operational ease and financial upside of consolidating your cloud real estate is just massive. Operating under a single organization gives you centralized visibility across all your accounts, so your teams are working under one shared corporate security policy. But here is the massive financial kicker, the thing we all care about: consolidated billing. You pool your usage together, which lets you optimize for those sweet volume discounts. Plus, you can effortlessly share underlying resources, like your virtual private clouds and directory services, all while enforcing compliance centrally with tools like AWS Config and Security Hub. It's just incredibly efficient. Think of it kind of like a unified corporate HQ with a bunch of regional offices. Everyone gets to operate independently, but they're all playing by one global set of rules. The authors of the post highlight a really perfect use case for this: the global retailer. Imagine you've got this massive retail company, regional teams, application owners, just spread all over the world. Every regional team absolutely needs the freedom to create their own AWS accounts so they can build and innovate quickly. But they do it under one centralized IT governance framework. You've got this core team at the top holding the reins on regulatory and security standards for the whole company, ensuring absolutely nothing slips through the cracks. Let's move on to Section 3, when to split up, exploring the exceptions that genuinely require multiple organizations. So what happens when you hit major organizational friction points? If your company is rapidly growing through acquisitions, or maybe you're getting hit with heavy industry regulations, breaking the mold into multiple organizations actually becomes necessary. Like, say you have highly independent business units, maybe subsidiaries or franchises, and they have completely separate leadership, governance, and security needs. Or let's say you're in a super regulated space, like banking or healthcare, where you legally require strict segmentation between entities. A lot of times it comes down to mergers and acquisitions. You buy a company and they really need to maintain their existing AWS footprint without completely upending their current operations. And honestly, sometimes you just want maximum isolation. You want an ironclad guarantee that a nasty misconfiguration or security incident over in one organization absolutely cannot jump the fence and affect the others. In these scenarios, we're basically shifting from that unified HQ model to an umbrella holding company model with entirely independent, isolated subsidiaries. A great example from the source material is a multinational financial firm. Picture this massive financial conglomerate. They've got a retail banking arm, investment banking, and an insurance division. Well, each of those divisions answers to entirely different regulatory bodies, right? And they have vastly different security requirements. Trying to force all of them into one single governance framework That would be an absolute nightmare. Having each division manage its own separate organization is honestly the safest and most logical path forward. There's also another interesting edge case here: the sandbox. John White, one of the authors, loves retro video games. So to borrow a concept from him, think of a sandbox organization like a dedicated save file. It lets you safely test things out without permanently crashing your main game. The authors point out that some global software companies spin up a completely separate AWS organization purely as a sandbox. They use it just to develop and test complex guardrails and SCPs in total isolation. They do all of this way before they ever dare to apply those policies to their primary money-making organization. It's the ultimate safety buffer to make sure a bad policy doesn't accidentally take down your live production systems.
Moving to Section 4, efficiency versus risk isolation, which is basically the ultimate architectural showdown.
Okay, let's put these two approaches on the balance scale. This is a clear showdown, pitting shared efficiency directly against the safety of strict isolation. On one hand, the single organization promises simplified management. You get centralized governance and significantly lower operational overhead because you just aren't duplicating efforts everywhere. But flip to the other side, and multiple organizations offer incredibly strong security, absolute failure isolation, and highly tailored governance flexibility for your autonomous business units. So, let's break this down a bit more, layer by layer. If you look at the comparison, money, rules, and security parameters diverge drastically between the two models. With a single organization, your billing is totally consolidated. That means you're reaping the financial rewards of those cross-account volume discounts we mentioned. Governance is centralized, and everyone is sharing that same security perimeter. But if you move over to multiple organizations, your billing is completely independent. No cross-organization volume discounts for you. Every single organization has to define its own governance policies from scratch. However, the trade-off is that in return, you get this incredibly strong hard security isolation between every unit. And taking it to the next layer, notice how multiple organizations act as a literal firewall for access and risk containment. In a single org, you're managing access centrally with IAM roles, and you can easily scale to thousands of accounts under that one umbrella. But the risk factor? A nasty misconfiguration could potentially impact other accounts inside that shared perimeter. Now look at multiple organizations. There is zero built-in cross-organization access. You have fully independent identity and access management setups. You are scaling each organization completely separately. But the massive, undeniable benefit here is risk isolation. If a severe misconfiguration or security breach actually happens, it is entirely contained within that one individual organization. It can't spread. Which leads us to our final section, Section 5, the final verdict and making the right choice for your enterprise. So, after weighing all of these technical strategies, what's the actual prescribed remedy from the cloud architects? The authors summarize it perfectly. Start with a single organization and only consider multiple organizations when the isolation requirements outweigh the operational benefits. That quote right there, that is your golden rule. Centralization is the default. You only split things up when risk isolation becomes your absolute, undeniable top priority. Look, for most enterprises, especially if you are adopting a centralized IT strategy, a single organization is simply the best fit. You really only want to take on the heavy operational overhead and the duplicated effort of multiple organizations if you are a massive conglomerate, a strictly regulated business, or a company juggling a lot of complex acquisitions. I want to leave you with a thought to ponder as you evaluate your own enterprise's needs. Will your cloud architecture easily adapt to your business's future, or is it going to become a massive bottleneck? Because choosing between one or many organizations, that's not just an IT decision, it's a foundational business strategy. It literally dictates your operational speed and your security posture for years to come. So you have to make sure the architecture you build today has the flexibility and the foresight to support exactly where your enterprise is heading tomorrow.